Welcome to the EchoCast, episode 80. This is Bon Diesel. I do division things, and I'll just throw out there right now that if this recording sounds weird or if you hear a baby in the background, that's because I'm recording in my living room, because I am on baby duty today and I want to get this recorded and done with. So I'm recording on my phone using a fancy new app, Easy Voice Recorder, so we'll see how it goes. Today, we are going to talk about the State of the Game recap, State of the Game thoughts, the Breakpoint release, Destiny 2 DLC, some listener questions, and personal and content updates. But first, if you would like to support the podcast and my other content, please check out patreon.com/theechocast. I want to thank DJ, Darren, Gray, Hassan, Joe, Jose, Luis, Mike, Ozzy, and Tim for helping support, and Christian, I need to remember you. Thank you for supporting the content through Patreon. I very much appreciate it. We have a goal of 11. We have 11 patrons right now, a goal of 20, and I will remove ads from the podcast and any other good suggestions. I am open and willing to hear them out. You can also support, or if you just want some EchoCast or Bon Diesel merch, you can go to Design by Human and just type in Bon Diesel. BAUNDIESEL, and I have a bunch of cool stuff on there, including some brand new merch I just posted today. Okay, so State of the Game recap, let's jump right into it. Today we had Hamish and Trick Dempsey on the show to talk about priority alerts and some changes just in general coming to episode 2 of the Division 2. Priority alerts basically consisted of comments and acknowledgement about the apparel key drop rate, concerns that a lot of people have and some frustrations people are having, and that there will be a new article on Friday to talk about it and talk about changes that they're going to have. I feel kind of guilty. I've only grinded out a handful of caches this time, and I've gotten keys on most of them. So I suspect it really is just crazy RNG, but I think it sounds like they may be doing something like the specialization ammo, the way it drops now, where you have like a meter and you see how close you are to getting more. Maybe they're going to do something like that, but we will have to see. They did talk about how in the live game, conflict mode had kind of a sneaky patch where they implemented some server changes to help with hit registration and lag and stuff like that. So go test it, because I imagine if it goes well in conflict, they'll introduce it into the rest of the game, which can only help. Next week's State of the Game was talked about as well, and it's going to be a deep dive into Episode 2's Pentagon activity and some new specializations. Okay, so then they talked about Episode 2 and how the expeditions are going to return, and the mastery system will be there. The mastery system is going to go, or the expeditions are going to go 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and I guess it's just going to be ongoing. So I still kind of don't get why they have to do it on and off anyways, but obviously they're sticking to it, so that's fine. And the mastery system looked cool. They showed some screenshots and stuff like that. You can either go watch it, or if you want to look at my Twitter, it's @BonDiesel. I did a whole State of the Game live tweet, and I included the screenshots that they posted as well. This is kind of a funny part, because I think it kind of slipped under the table, or under people's eyes or ears. But I believe Trick said that the first expedition return will be on October 15th. And he also said, they also said that that's the episode 2 is when the expeditions will return. So with my big giant brain, I'm putting together that maybe we're getting episode 2 on the 15th, but no confirmation. I'm sure they'll talk about that, I assume, next week. Okay, they talked about some changes with the Shepherd rank and how there's basically going to be guaranteed progression every time you help someone, as well as a chance for them to reward you for helping. They talked about how in episode 2, Camp White Oak and the zoo missions will now be invadable, and the zoo will actually be a stronghold because it's such a big mission. Trick talked about a secret boss in the zoo that no one had found at that point, and then within a couple hours, people had found it and were posting all about it on Reddit. If you don't want spoilers to it, close your ears for like 10 seconds. But basically, there's 5 beehives in the middle area of the map, near the butterfly exhibit, and then you shoot all of them, and then you go to the butterfly exhibit and hit a button, and the boss comes out. No special drops or anything, but kind of a neat little thing, kind of funny that no one thought to figure it out. And then last, they talked about the places where named items will drop, and was kind of rehashing some stuff. But I'm talking about how like heroic activities and bounties and stuff like that, and that really any enemy in the game has a minuscule chance to drop named items. But there's going to be places that are way more likely to drop them, and some will only drop in certain activities. So for me, I thought this was a pretty self-explanatory state of the game. Trick is awesome. They always provide good information, and I really appreciate whenever they are on, because they're one of my favorite people to have on the show. As for the next episode next week, we are going to have talk about the Pentagon and the new specialization. So the new specialization, if you paid attention to the phase 1 of the PTS for Title Update 6, they actually kind of leaked it in there. Again, if you don't want any spoilers, don't listen for like 10 seconds. It's called the Technician, and it had a hive special thing. But by phase 2 of the PTS, they had taken all reference to that out. I didn't get any screenshots. I'm sure some other people did. But we don't really know much more than that about it. So I'm hoping... I've always been guessing for like an RPG, like a single shot missile launcher. Maybe it would take down Heavy's armor completely and maybe even knock him out. Or maybe it would have some area of effect or something. I don't know. Or that, or the flamethrower people have been throwing out for a long time for a new specialist weapon. And as for the actual things that they can do special, we'll just probably have to wait and see. I'm not smart enough to guess. The Pentagon is a complete mystery at this point, and I'm sure I'm excited to find out what it's going to be. I think I have some really hopeful ideas of it being like the Underground 2.0, or hoping that it's going to be some big replayable thing. At the very least, I hope it is replayable in some capacity. From a realistic point of view, I'm not really expecting it to be like the Underground. I think that in hindsight, we maybe didn't realize how big of a project something like the Underground and something like Survival and those things really were, that they were probably in development for a good chunk of the entire game, as side projects. So, I don't think of that as like an excuse, but I do kind of realize that, maybe we aren't going to get that kind of content until episode 3 or something like that, but we'll have to wait and see. But either way, honestly, I'm just excited. I have full confidence that it's going to be better than the Expedition. Again, I think the Expedition has some merit. I think the mastery system is going to help with that, but still, it just kind of, I don't know. It was a little lackluster, if you ask me, and I think that they can do better than that. I did see something else that was kind of interesting division-wise. I noticed that there was a topic on the forums that got brought up in my Discord, talking about how a creator was claiming that they were asked to preview the Pentagon mission or whatever it's going to be, and they were, they showed this email, Born to Gun or something like that. I've never heard of him, but looks like he's got a nice following. So it's weird. The email they showed was kind of interesting. It, like, if someone said, "Hey, make an email or make something that looks like an email to rile people up," it's what it looked like. It definitely didn't look like any of the emails I've ever received from Ubisoft. That said, a lot of the information on it looked legit. So I guess maybe that's a thing. I just wasn't under the impression they had infrastructure where I'm not aware that they've ever allowed people to remotely test new content besides the PTS. In theory, I could see how they could have a PTS-like build of the game that they could send out to certain people on their Uplay account, I guess, and you could maybe test out this kind of thing. Maybe you get a preview to it. That person's the only creator I've seen talk about anything like that. I that creator is lukewarm at best towards the game, it seems, from the videos I've seen. But they are fairly popular. So, and one thing I will give Division credit for is they don't just give promotion, or they don't just give opportunities to people who love them. They invite people who aren't so positive as well to their events. So I don't know. I mean, if it's real, I guess my thing is I saw people getting upset, acting as if, oh, they're giving these YouTubers, this special treatment. I mean, yeah, they do. They do give people who promote their game, sometimes good or bad, special treatment because they need to make money, and that's how they make money, is with advertisement. And something like this barely even costs them any money, and it gives creators an opportunity to get a few clicks and get a few new follows. So I mean, even if this is true, which it very well may be, I don't really see the harm in it, especially if they have an embargo where they can't release any of the information like until launch day or like the day before, so you can choose to ignore it if you want. I think it was kind of lame to, if it is real, to take a screenshot and post it. That's a pretty good way to never get any opportunities with Ubisoft again. But that's to each their own. Not everyone cares about that kind of stuff, and that's perfectly fine. So I don't really see the harm in it, but some people won't like it, and I'll just say I'm not super worried about it. So there we go. Okay, I'll tell you what else I'm not worried about. I'm not worried about this 30-second mid-roll that's about to come up. So I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so a couple of topics here. I'm going to talk about Ghost Recon Breakpoint, Destiny 2 Shadowkeep, and I'm going to talk a little bit about something that came up before I could put it on my notes here, but the PS4 announcing that they are removing the restriction of crossplay from beta and opening up to every developer who wants to consider it. So, okay, Ghost Recon Breakpoint. So if you listened to the podcast last week, I talked about the beta. So what happened was the beta ended on Sunday morning, which was kind of weird. I've never seen a beta end on a weird day like that, but I guess that's what was announced, so that's fine. On the last episode, I kind of gave my thoughts on the closed beta, and then I made a big post on Twitter, again at Bondiesel, about my experience with Breakpoint, the things I liked and didn't like. I definitely like some things. I think it's a fun little sandbox shooter. It's fun to blow some time in, but there's also a bunch of stuff I don't like. And I'll say that, Monday morning, they actually opened up the servers a day early for people with Deluxe Edition, which I got a code. For full disclosure, I got a free code from Ubisoft. I am a Delta Company member, which is their creator partnership program. It's not really clearly defined, but basically they selected a bunch of people in their community, both YouTubers and creators and people who don't do that, to be in this Delta Company group. There's a Discord and stuff like that, and part of that is that you could request a code, which I got. So full disclosure, thank you to Ubisoft for giving that to me. But there's some problems. So I've talked at length about a lot of the issues I have with Ghost Recon Breakpoint, just in general. I don't really think it represents the Ghost Recon franchise very well. I feel like it's kind of taken it in a direction that I really wish it wouldn't have. I think Wildlands definitely started that trend. Wildlands was the first Ghost Recon not made by Red Storm, or not led by Red Storm. Red Storm did Future Soldier and all the ones before that. Future Soldier, for full disclosure, is my favorite Ghost Recon game ever, and probably one of my favorite games in general. So obviously I set a high bar, and Wildlands just never met it for me. Again, kind of like Breakpoint, it's a cool sandbox, but the story is just the worst, and it drags on and on and on and on and on. The method of even getting to the story missions in Wildlands was just atrocious. And then it just was goofy. It was just, the open world was neat and it was pretty, but traversing that open world was fast traveling or using a helicopter, because driving was just useless. You just drove off of cliffs was the fastest way to get to places. And it's the same in Breakpoint. Basically, Breakpoint is Wildlands 1.5. It's got some updates. There's a few things new to it. There's a few regressions, in my opinion. One of those regressions definitely being this looter shooter system that they've added. Wildlands had like a skill tree that you had to unlock, but now Breakpoint has that, which I actually like the skill tree in Breakpoint. But then, the gear progression that it added. I mean, there's a gear score in a Ghost Recon game now, and there's leveled enemies, and there's leveled gear and guns with attributes. It just, the only attributes a Ghost Recon gun needs is accuracy, recoil, damage. We don't need to have 3% extra damage against robots. That's just unnecessary for a Ghost Recon game, and it just really bums me out that they put that in there, because along with that comes this really bullet spongy feel to the game, which Wildlands actually kind of had on its own. You could hit unarmored enemies with like 4 or 5 chest shots and they wouldn't go down. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but that's definitely what it felt like. But then headshots were one-hit kills, which is good, but you can't have one and the other. I don't know. And then Breakpoint continues that trend, and even worse. If you fight enemies that are above your level, they can take a ton of hits, but they still are only one-shot headshots, which the logic of that is just mind-boggling. If you want a looter shooter, you need to make it so enemies higher level than you definitely can't be one-shot headshot. But that's not what we have. We have a game where a level 1 pistol can one-shot headshot a level 150 enemy, but it'll take like 15 shots to their chest to even do any damage. And then in the drones and robots and stuff is where the sponginess gets really bad. It's crazy. I hate it. I hate this new system they put in, and I get what they're doing. They did it with Assassin's Creed, which I actually think it's done really well in Assassin's Creed. I know I keep seeing people compare Division 2, from Breakpoint, and that's just, it's such a bad thing. If you've played the games, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel the same at all. What Breakpoint feels like is Assassin's Creed with guns. The way the menu is, the way the loadouts are, even the way that skills and talents drop on the gear and all that stuff. I mean, it's Odyssey, with guns, which is fine. Odyssey's a great game, but unfortunately, it just doesn't fit into the Ghost Recon world, at least in my opinion. And then there's a bunch of stuff. The movement feels terrible. The cover system's garbage. The enemies are as dumb as rocks. They're just so stupid. Even the wolf enemies, the wolves, Sean from The Walking Dead, they're just so dumb. The only thing that differentiates them from the other dumb enemies is that they wear helmets, so they take 2 headshots to kill with any gun. As far as I can tell, they don't have any special abilities. They don't have any special AI. They just run at you and shoot until you kill them, or until they get lucky and kill you. But even beyond all of the gameplay stuff and the story absolutely drags on. I got past the part of the story that was in the beta, and you run into, at least where I'm at, these 3 people you need to find, and the story progression for them is just awful. It's just grindy and feels terrible to me. It's not compelling. The story's not interesting. It's just do this and this and this to find this person. And I don't know where the story goes beyond that. And honestly, at this point, I don't think I'm probably ever going to find out. I'm bored with it, and the story isn't interesting to me. And then the biggest offender is the microtransactions. I'll preface what I'm going to say about this with, you don't have to buy any of them. You can complete this game, and you can compete in Ghost War, the PvP. You can do everything without purchasing a single thing. Absolutely. A good chunk of the stuff you can earn with regular credits that you earn while playing the game. And you can have that experience and be fine. But there's things, first, you can literally buy anything, like with real money. and it just feels dirty. Whether it's unlocking weapons, unlocking attachments, buying vehicles. There are some outfits and weapon attachments that I believe you can only purchase with real money. And I think that some of the attachments are like, there's certain attachments you can only purchase, and they're like really useful. And I think that's kind of shady. I could be wrong, but from what I can tell, there's attachments that you can't buy. And then the coolest looking things in the game are the wolves, even though they're the easiest enemies to kill in the game. And to wear their outfits, you have to buy them. You can't just earn them. I think there's one helmet you can buy with game credits, but most of them you can't. You have to buy them with real money. And on top of that, you have like XP boosters and stuff like that, which, we had this stuff in Odyssey, and some of this stuff was in Wildlands too, but it just didn't seem so forced in your face. Like the XP booster is my favorite. With the deluxe edition I have, the XP booster, it lasts you get one for free for 2 days. And what I noticed is that every time you kill an enemy, it shows the XP that you got from killing that enemy in the top. And what it shows also, right on top of that, is how much you have left of your booster. Every single enemy or anything you do to earn XP, it shows you how much you have left on your booster. And from a psychology standpoint, that's dirty. Maybe some people are going to argue that it's informative, that it's how it should be, and that's great. But what it really is it's a constant reminder of you're gonna run out. You're gonna run out of your booster. Don't you love getting extra XP? Man, don't you already feel like you're earning XP pretty slow? You should go and get another booster. And I do think that sucks. I hate that. And then the thing that drove me the craziest is that the purchasable coins in Breakpoint are called ghost credits. The coin that you earn just in general, the money that you earn generally, is called Skell credits. Skell is the person who ran this island before the takeover. And you can purchase large sums of Skell credits with ghost credits. So you can take real money from your bank account and buy ghost credits. And then you can use those ghost credits to buy the currency that you can earn for free in the regular game. It's just crazy. Like, I think what's most frustrating to me about it is that every single dev on this team, who I'm sure many of them hated that they were doing this, and everyone at Ubisoft and everyone at the studio who makes this game, Ubisoft Paris, I believe, had to have known, like, this is going to be a shit show. Even if we don't think it's abusive, and even if we don't think it's, there's no loot boxes yet, I'm sure they're coming. They were in Wildlands. Even if it doesn't feel abusive, and even if it's like, hey, you can play the whole game without needing any of this, anyone has to be able to look at this microtransaction section in Breakpoint and just be like, yikes. Like it has to make anyone cringe. And I'm not even big on complaining about microtransactions and stuff. I kind of don't give a damn about them. I'm gonna play the crap out of Call of Duty Modern Warfare, even though I'm sure they're gonna put in some really stupid crap. And if it's this blatant, I'll complain about it too. But like, this game already feels like such an abuse to the name of Ghost Recon. And Wildlands was bad enough. And now with this, I just don't. And then on top of some of the other changes they've made, and then some things they didn't change, which they absolutely should have, like the cover system. It's just weird. And I'm sure there's devs and CMs right now at Ubisoft and with this game who are just like shaking their heads like, hey, we knew this was gonna suck. But and then there's just things that, they hid all the microtransaction stuff in the betas, which is fine, that people will excuse that and whatever. But then what I thought was funny is that I can't recall a single line of marketing that talked about the loot system and the RPG system that they've added in with Breakpoint and the systems they've added. And to me, what that says is they knew people would lose their minds about it, so they didn't want to talk about it, and they hoped that the people who did talk about it wouldn't be too loud. And it's just mind-boggling. But it is what it is. I'm not gonna complain more than I need to. Honestly, I played the PvP's fine. It feels exactly the same as Wildlands. I've had a few people push back on me on that and say that some things have improved, and The dedicated servers, I'm sure, feel better. That some of the systems do seem somewhat improved, but the overall feel of it feels no different than Wildlands. And I think that this game is going to be such a hot mess, both media-wise and when people actually get their hands on it, that you're going to have the same situation you did with Wildlands, where you're going to have this core, extremely passionate, if not somewhat volatile fan base who is just going to snap back at anyone who complains about things that I think are fairly legitimate. And you're going to end up with a few thousand people who love this game, even with all of its faults. And you're going to have another Ghost Recon game that, they're not meant, they're kind of niche games anyways. But you're kind of taking a lot of fun out of the game and just, for the sake of trying to make sure it's profitable, I guess. And that's a bummer, because Ghost Recon deserves more than that. Ghost Recon really could have stayed one of their only single player games that they had left, with some co-op and some really organized, really good PvP, the way that I would say Future Soldier was. Instead, they've just added in, we had the Division come out, which I think does RPG stuff really well, because it should. That's the whole point. And then they did it to Assassin's Creed, which I really didn't mind, because I think it actually works really well. But then they did it to Far Cry, and that's when I cringed and I said, oh no, they're going to keep doing this, because Far Cry 5 was great. Far Cry 5 was a great Far Cry game. It wasn't an amazing, super amazing game, but it was a great Far Cry game. And when they did that, and I saw, the first time I saw the first announcement for Breakpoint, and I noticed what was going on, I was like, oh no, they're going to Far Cry New Age Breakpoint. And sure enough, that's what they did. And then all that's made me think about now is, oh my god, when they release Beyond Good and Evil 2, it's going to be an RPG, which could be okay. Could be like Assassin's Creed. And when Splinter Cell comes out, I put my foot down now. I think I said on stream a week or two ago, Splinter Cell, whatever the next one's called, whenever it comes out, is probably going to be an open world, loot-based RPG. Because I bet they're making it right now, and I bet everything they have in the pipe right now. Same with Watch Dogs. That, with the way that game looks like, it could work if they do this open world looter thing. But eventually you're going to have fatigue of this formula. So I've ranted about that enough. I'll move on to the next topic, which is Destiny 2 Shadowkeep. Straight up, I don't care about Destiny 2. Best shooting mechanics in really maybe the game, in the gaming world. I will say that Call of Duty Modern Warfare has some real chunky feeling guns. Feels super good. I would, from a Homer standpoint, I would argue that Division 2 actually has some really good feeling guns, but Destiny 2 by far best feeling guns in the game, in the gaming industry. Had a rough go. Destiny 2 started off really bad, has recovered really well, and I still think it's just a boring game to play. I hate how the enemies just kind of wait for you to kill them. It's just interesting to me that Destiny 2 is such a fun game to shoot guns in, that has the least interesting things to shoot at. But beyond that, I dabble whenever they have updates come out, and I've been paying attention to Shadowkeep a little bit. And what I think is interesting is, now that it's come out, I've seen some various reviews and stuff like that. Apparently, I didn't play Destiny 1 either, but this DLC returns to the moon, which, if you didn't know, Destiny 2 involves a bunch of the planets in our solar system, our real planets, that you go around and do various activities at. And the moon is the new location for this DLC, which was a DLC in the first game as well. And I've seen like one half of people saying like, hey, this is just a rehash of the first game. These are the same enemies we fought, the same places we fought at, same activities even. Some of the missions, I guess, are, feel extremely similar. And then the other half are like, yeah, maybe, but what's being changed deep down is great. So I do think that conversation is kind of interesting. I'm, curious to, if you have any input on it, feel free to let me know, because I'm pretty uneducated with Destiny, so I'm willing to hear other opinions out. But I really think Destiny should be kind of like a marker for Division 2. I think Division 2 right now, as we stand, we are about 7 months into the release. And one thing I really want people to consider is, how good of shape Destiny 2 is in right now with its community and just with the game in general. But also to consider that I believe, and this is maybe my fanboyism, but I really don't think so, that that Destiny 2 was in bad shape until Forsaken, which I believe came out a year after the game came out. I don't think the Division 2 has ever been in as bad a shape as Destiny 2 was at release. I think Division 2 at 7 months is in way better shape than Destiny 2 was at 7 months. And with that said, I obviously don't think Division 2 is in better shape than Destiny 2 today. But what, to me, that says that there's an opportunity and I think a likelihood that that the Division 2 in a better state currently can really progress and get better and better as time goes on. And a year and a half, 2 years in, I'm really excited to see where Division 2 is at, because honestly, I'm just excited to see where we're at after Title Update 6. I think we'll probably have 6 in Episode 2, and then probably Title Update 7, and then probably Title Update 8 with Episode 3, and that's the return to New York. Like, that's going to be the big topic here soon after Title Update 6 comes out, is to wonder, like, what in the heck is Episode 3 going to be? What are we going to do in New York? So, I think Destiny 2, I respect the heck out of it, even if I don't really care for it that much, and I really hope that Division 2 can meet that. And then the last thing here is a little bit of a talk about, the PlayStation 4. Sony announced today, as of recording this podcast, that they are opening up crossplay. I guess they had it in a beta stage, and now they're opening up, and it's basically up to developers to input. So Division 2 developers, I'm sure it's a super complicated process, mostly because of usernames. But whether it's a system of username with, a little symbol or something that designates, who plays on what system, or if it uses your Ubisoft, like your Uplay name, because even if you're on Xbox or PS4, you need an Ubisoft login, or you should have one for your progress and stuff. However that you can do it, please do. I really think that especially the consoles could benefit from it. PC, I honestly, I mean this not in the nicest way, but it kind of seems like that community kind of prefers to keep to itself. And because of some of the challenges, like with PvP and stuff like that, that's a thing I would like to see happen eventually. But I feel like the console side, getting PS4 and Xbox to play together or theoretically could happen extremely quickly. And maybe we can bring the PC people into the fold eventually. But just player base wise and stuff like that, this is for all games, but especially for the Division 2. I really, really just hope that they implement this. At some point, we don't have to wait till like a Division 3 or, the next generation of systems and games before this happens. I think that the technology is probably there. If anything, I just would like a statement. I would just like hey, we're looking into it, and as soon as we can figure out a way to do it efficiently and safely and blah, 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 we'll do it. Please, for the love of all that's good, on playing Call of Duty with people from all systems was so awesome. And I really think that for games like The Division that have their ups and downs of player population, it could really help with matchmaking and stuff like that. So if you have it, so support it, whoever you are. If you're a player, support it as a player. If you're a dev, support it as a dev. Let's get people to make the right decision here. Okay, so we've got a few listener questions from Patreon. I've got Christian Deckert, and we have questions. Let's see here. I'm going to run through these pretty quick. What are the next 2 or 3 builds you think are the most efficient in PvE and PvP? I'm probably not the best person to ask about those specific builds. I know I've taken my skill build and my damage to elite build already in the live game and modified them to work for Title Update 6 when it drops, just so I'm ready to go right out the gate. I don't really have any talent combos and all that to talk about, but what I will say is that my damage to elite build, even though I had damage to elite stacked, now I focus that build towards mostly weapon damage and then specific weapon damage, and I'm actually pretty surprised that I believe it may actually be more powerful than my stacked damage to elite build was. So I think that we're actually going to have a pretty good chance of seeing a bunch of new builds coming up, but I'm probably not the best person to ask about specifics. For raid speculation, Christian asked, Will this be a pure DPS, kind of like the first one, or maybe some more fancy mechanics? I think it has to be some more fancy mechanics. I really think it needs to be skill based, and there needs to be a lot more to it. The first raid was, after I watched it enough, I even kind of lost interest in doing it, because it's basically, once you know what the mechanics are, it's just a giant DPS test, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would be curious to see some more interesting mechanics than just shoot really hard. And then finally, will matchmaking be immediately available for second raid, matchmaking for normal difficulty on the first one at least? I think if you've paid attention to what the devs have said, we are never going to get straight matchmaking on like the real raids, like the real level of raid. They did they talked a bit about doing like an LFG system, which is sort of like matchmaking, but much more focused. I think that's going to be way more likely to be included, maybe with the second raid. Maybe not, but I will even say, my whole thing when the last raid came out was I agreed with a lot of people that matchmaking in the raid would be a nightmare, with people not talking and stuff like that. It would be awful. I still think that it's fine to give people the opportunity. Maybe they'll get lucky, but I also understand, the whole idea. My issue was that there were people who are, from what I've basically gathered, who were Destiny fans, who, because Destiny doesn't do it, the Division shouldn't do it. And it was just kind of this like, almost like nose up in the air kind of attitude about, maybe we don't want matchmaking necessarily, but we need a option. Just yelling at people and telling them to join a Discord server, that isn't going to work for the majority of players. That's, especially for console players, using Discord for gaming and for that isn't a common thing for most players. And just yelling at them to do that isn't the way to fix this. So, while I don't believe we'll get matchmaking for the second or third or fourth or 100th raid, I do think that we'll eventually have some type of LFG system where people can like set parameters for the type of players they want to pull in. And there can be like almost like a board of, hey, we need someone like this. If you're like that, please jump in. And, if that's true, then we'll go do the thing. So no to matchmaking, but probably some type of LFG system. Then the last question here is from Joe Polidoro. And they ask, all large changes aside, what minor quality of life tweaks would you like to see in Title Update 6 or later? I think the ones that we're getting are cool. It's kind of hard to just throw them out there because when I played the PTS, sorry, big yawn. When I played the PTS, it just a bunch of little things just felt better. Whether it was the targeted looting, the new Shepherd system, just the changes to the builds and stuff like that in general, the changes to the layout and stuff like that of some things. The difference in the recalibration, and I just feel like the Title Update 6, like there's some big headline changes, but it's really an update full of smaller changes that are quality of life based. For ones in the future that they still haven't touched, I really think that the community opinion on the whole, range of stats on gear based on the gear score is a big change that needs to be looked at least, or considered. But other than that, I don't know. I think that Title Update 6 needs to come out, and then I can have a stronger opinion of quality of life things I still want. For some quick content updates, Baby Diesel and Bay Diesel are doing great. Baby Diesel's getting huge. It's crazy. Bay Diesel returned to work this week, so I took a few days off to help everyone get to a new routine. I will be off on Wednesdays for the rest of this year because of some obligations that Bay Diesel has. And so, the state of the games and stuff like that should be interesting. So if you notice today, I was actually able to post screenshots. I should be able to keep doing that for at least the next couple months until I go back to work on Wednesdays. And the crazy schedule, on the other hand, has meant that I haven't really streamed too much in this week. I'm going to try to get back to it, I promise. It's just a lot right now, a lot of changes. I'm very tired. and neglecting lots of housework. And then the final thing is I plan on doing the video for episode 2 once it comes out, once I can kind of get my hands on it. I did this for the expedition and talked about it. I may just focus it on just the Pentagon, or I may do a more general video this time. The Pentagon, I had a lot to, or the expedition, I had a lot to say because I thought it was kind of a letdown. But we'll have to see how everything plays out. I was gonna do a video on Breakpoint, but at this point, I don't. I'm good. There's enough other people making videos and doing them much better than I could do. If you liked Wildlands, definitely check it out. I guess. Just be weary, maybe wait and see if it's going to be on sale here in a couple months. It's not a bad game, but it should be a lot better than it is. And I think they kind of deserve to have their feet kind of raked over the coals a bit for some of the really obnoxious decisions made in the game. But we'll see. Maybe they'll change things. It's probably going to be too late if I have to be totally honest. Okay, so to wrap things up, if you want to support the podcast or my other content, please check out patreon.com/theechocast. You can also check out my merch for a bunch of different stuff on designbyhuman.com and look up Bond Diesel and you will find merch on there. The coffee cups are definitely the most popular item, but there's t-shirts and sweaters and stuff like that as well. If you're on iTunes and you're listening to this, please rate the podcast and leave a review. It helps me out and it helps me get noticed. I am Bond Diesel on Twitch, where I stream 3 to 4 times a week when things aren't crazy. I'm also Bond Diesel at Twitter, where you can catch my thoughts, state of the game live tweets, and the occasional foot in my own mouth. And that's all I have. So, until next time.